Hello again. Now I should give you a couple minutes of discussion around the article Learning to Play the Seminar Game. I hope you have read it before, because this is just a way of trying to make it more lively for you. This was actually my first article, writing on an article, and it also became the first article of 4 in my thesis. My thesis name was Broad Entry, Vague Exit, and I could ask Ulla to give you some information how to reach it. It's for free in a PDF file, so it don't cost anything. If someone will be interested in reading it, I know. But let's talk about the article now. It started already in 2002 when a colleague of me, a classmate of me named Andreas, discussed cooperation. We had an exam to do in a course, a PhD course, and we said, couldn't we do something real? Not just write something. Let's do something real. Let's do an investigation about something. Let's try to understand something. And we discussed what to do. And then we said, okay, let's try to find out how is it really when you enter higher education as a new student. We have all done it, right? But now we have been in the system for quite a while, me and Andreas, and something has changed in the system and so on. So we said, okay, let's sit on the bench together with the students and try to understand what they are doing. What kind of information are they getting? What kind of information do they actually give? Or what kind of information do they themselves try to find? How are the teacher and the system approaching them as students? And are they feeling welcomed joining the big university? And so on and so forth. So we decided to investigate the political science students, because that was the student group in my thesis. So we tried to investigate them. So we did an observational study, and we followed them for 5 weeks. So we were sitting in the bench together with the students when they were lecturers and when there were seminars. And this was quite interesting. Of course, because it was an investigation, but also because I learned something about political science. So we attended all the lectures and all the seminars, trying to see what happened from a student perspective. So the first day the teacher arrived, he said, hello and welcome to this class of political science. There was about 1900 students. And he said, the course is designed like this. He was actually very pedagogical or didactical, or what to call it, because he tried to give a disposition of the course to the students. And he also said that in this course we first have a series of lectures, and then we move on to a series of seminars, and then we have the final exam of the course. And this is the only exam that you have. And the students were like, all right, we don't have any exams for the next 10 weeks or something like that. So they were quite happy with that. So this was what the teacher said. And if you have read the article, you of course know that this wasn't quite the truth. But I will come back to that later. So now it is interesting to see what happened. It happened a lot, of course, in the lectures, but the lectures was quite lectures. As I said in the first speech, the other speech, I gave to you, the presentation I gave of this higher education system in Sweden. They were quite traditional teaching. He was standing and giving lectures for 3 hours, and the students were sitting quite quiet, so to speak, and they reached the hand in the end of the session and so on. But it wasn't a dialogue. It was he was the expert. He was talking, and so on. But then we reached the seminars, and now something starts to happen, because in the seminars all students know, or should know, or somehow actually quite quickly get a grasp of how to behave in this kind of seminars. And the seminar was 3 seminars that all had the content of philosophical questions like happiness and so on. So the first seminar was actually the most interesting, I think, because in the first seminar they set the agenda how to behave against each other, when to speak and when not to speak, and who were giving the words and so on. So it started with that. It was 15 or 20 students. I really don't remember. I think it's in the article. And they were sitting in kind of like a ring, and they started to talk. And the teachers entered the classroom, and they just kept on talking. And they actually talked about being happy. So they followed the seminar structure. And the teacher come in, and he sat down, and he had this kind of checklist with all the names on. And they put it in front of him, and he sat down and said, okay, let's start the seminar now. So he ended all the nice, according to me at least, very nice discussion they had about happiness that emanated from their own studies. So it was actually very good, because it was in the frame of the seminar. But he cut them off and he said, okay, now I want you to say something, and he pointed at the student. And the student was like, okay, now I have to say something. And the student said something, and probably it wasn't good enough, because it didn't happen anything more. So he pointed at another student, and this student gave an answer that I thought was okay. It was an A course. It was the first course, and so on. So yeah, it was okay. Nothing happened, and then he pointed on the third student, and then he was sitting like this, and then he took his pen, and then he did like this, big tick off. You know, and all of a sudden something happened in the classroom. All the students, including me and my other observer, Andreas, thought that this seminar was a free seminar that had no exams on it. It was just a way of reflecting on and discussing the theories in the course, together with the teachers. That, of course, is some kind of expert. But you could feel the tension in the room, because everybody recognized, okay, I have to make a contribution. I have to get this kind of tick off, because if I don't get the tick off, something would probably happen. So it started with that students started to raise their hands. So it went from a free discussion in the beginning of the course, or not the course, sorry, beginning of the seminar, and it ended in just 10 minutes. It not ended, but in 10 minutes it shifted to a very steered discussion where the teacher was was ruling the turn taking very clearly, and giving the tick off to the students so they know if they were good or not good enough. And he did the worst thing at the end of the seminar, actually. I'm being normative now, I know. But then he said, okay, you that didn't have a tick off, you have to do a writing paper instead. So he moved from this is not an exam to, if you're not passing the more oral exam that I didn't know was an exam, I have to do something else. So it was a quite tricky thing. And me and my colleague, we went home and thinking, okay, did we miss some information somehow, somewhere? Where does it say that this is an exam? Because orally he has said very clearly that this is not an exam. So did we miss something? So we took all the papers that was distributed in the course, and we started to read them very, very carefully. And of course there was nothing like that. So this was all about a hidden curriculum from the teacher, and the worst part of it is that he's actually aware of it, because he does the same thing every year. So when talking about him, about his result, this is a colleague of me, of course, it was at the same university. He gave us entrance to his classroom, and this was quite an ethical dilemma. How much to write about this kind of stuff? So we have a long discussion, and he was quite angry at me for a while, I think, because we had this kind of pedagogical discussions. And I said, how can you do it in this manner when you know that the students don't feel safe and secure and can take a place in the Swedish context like they used to do? You know, that you can talk in a seminar, you should talk in a seminar, you shouldn't be steered in the seminar, you shouldn't be examined in a seminar. Seminar is a word that sometimes is misused, because seminar in its right meaning, or in the historical meaning, means to have a conversation with a very high roof or no roof at all. It means that you should be able to think from the top of your head. You shouldn't be sitting, you shouldn't be steered in your thinking, and actually you should never be examined in a seminar. So, all right, this was some notes from me and my experience of making an observational case study. If you're interested, please contact Ulla, and you can get Ulla, not Allah, and you can get a PFD file from my dissertation if you will have some more reading to do. Thank you. Bye bye.